Hi everyone. In today's video I am going to be working on a piece of artwork which has been inspired by a recent sketch walk, and I'm going to be creating this piece of art for my calendar for 2023. I've actually almost finished producing all of the pieces now, but I thought you might be interested to see a little bit more of the behind the scenes in the way in which I produce this work. Normally when I'm sketching outside, the process is a lot faster, a lot quicker as I'm responding to what I see in front of me. Whereas back in the studio, this process now where I'm looking at what I've sketched, I'm spending a bit more time on my colours and layers and on the mark making, and you'll see the process is a lot slower actually than working in my sketchbook. Although I quite like the freedom I get with my sketchbook work, I also like to sometimes spend a bit more time developing a piece, and so this is what you'll see today. I'm also going to be answering some of your questions. Recently I posted on the community tab and also over on IG stories asking if there are any questions that you wanted to ask me, and so I'm going to be answering those in our time together. Because there was quite a bit of overlap in some of the questions, what I'm going to do is just basically talk about the areas in which the questions were given, and hopefully that will cover most of the questions that were asked. So I'm going to start by talking about my art journey. I've always been interested in art and drawing, and growing up I certainly enjoyed creating all sorts of things. I loved using my hands and I loved cutting, sticking. I also loved drawing. My favourite subject at school was art, so it's always been something that I've been drawn to. There aren't any other artists in my immediate family. I believe on my dad's side there was an artist, perhaps his uncle, I think. And then on my mum's side, we've got Norwegian relatives, and I think one of them is actually a practicing artist as well. However, I grew up in a household of teachers, and both my mum and dad were teachers, and then also my uncle and aunt were also teachers. So teaching was definitely the route that I thought I would be going down. I studied fine art at uni, but that was not probably what you think. I actually did a lot of conceptual art. I did something called installation work, where I would think of a concept and then build it. So, and I think my final project that I did was actually build a massive cube which you could walk into, and inside it was almost like being inside my brain. I had made lots of soft sculpture, textiles. There was also a lot of photography and writing as well. So it was just a very creative, experimental time. However, once I finished that course, although it was a lot of fun, I found I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to do. Even though I knew I wanted to do something creative, I wasn't quite sure how I was going to actually get a job. Married my husband actually not long after I graduated, and we moved to Hong Kong for a few years. And it was when we were in Hong Kong that actually I started noticing illustration. I noticed it all over the malls and shopping centres, and I noticed it on packaging, on banners, festivals, and it was this kind of thing that I thought, that is what I want to do. I want to actually create images that can be used on a whole range of things. So when we moved back to the UK, I started to build my portfolio. I found a course led by Leela Rogers, the art agent, and I took one of her courses. I think it was Make Art That Sells, and it was about making products for homewares, I think. Anyway, what it did teach me was a lot about the different markets that you can work in and a bit of the business side of being an illustrator, and just gave me a lot of confidence in creating new work. At the same time as doing that, I had also started a screen printing workshop where I was printing my designs onto tea towels and bags, and I was selling these things through markets online as well as in person. And I also had quite a few stockists that I was selling to, and these stockists were all over the country, including also one in Australia. So I was managing that at the same time as then building or creating pieces for my portfolio for illustration. At one of these fairs that I went to, I actually met a local designer who ran a studio, and it was through that connection then that I started to receive freelance work for illustration. So it kind of came out of the blue, that. And then once I started to get work coming in, I made sure I had a website where I would publish projects that I'd done, either personal projects or when I started creating work for clients, I then, would put them on my website. And very slowly I would start getting more people inquire about work for them, their business, and gradually I just started building up clients. The type of work that I've done ranges from website branding work and design to illustrations for food packaging, drinks bottles. I've also worked on a food book. I also love to draw maps, and maps is probably the thing that I do most of nowadays. It's become kind of my speciality to do maps. So I work with a lot of different businesses on their map needs. And I think what I enjoy about maps is that it really satisfies my interest for exploring other places. So when you are preparing to make a map, you really have to do a lot of research on the area that you're doing it in. So you have to find out about, obviously, the location, and then what towns, what cities, what's the wildlife, what is the environment like. And then you find out, are there colour palettes that you might associate with the place? So there's a whole range of different things that come into play. And I think that really just satisfies me, because you then get to do a whole range of things. My regular client at the moment, who commissions me to do maps each month, I get to draw all the different tasting notes for wines. The thing that I do really enjoy about working for others is that there's a brief and there's a deadline, and actually I really enjoy having something to work towards. I think I would struggle if I didn't have a deadline to work towards. And I also like creating something for someone else who, they see an end result, and then they also get quite excited once they've got the finished illustration and seeing how it's effectively working for them. So I recently completed a large map illustration for a farm, and they've now got it on their wall in their farm area, and they're just really, really happy with it. And I know it will serve a lot of people who are coming to the farm who may want to understand what the farm does. The graphic really tells them about who runs the farm. So I was able to include the family, I was able to include the local wildlife and the wildflowers that grow around the area, as well as just the land itself and what they manage. I think that's what I really enjoy actually about my client work, is that the work really serves the client well. Sometimes I think it would be nice to do something different, but then that actually leads into what my sketchbook practice is about. So I love keeping sketchbooks. If you watched my most recent video on the joy of sketching, I talk about this and what I get out of sketching. So if you want to hear a bit more about that and you haven't yet watched it, go and watch it, because then you'll know what sketching gives me. I discovered sketchbooks back in 2017, and it started off really simply with a brush pen and black ink, just drawing from my surroundings. And I basically did that for a number of years, and eventually started to add more mediums to my sketchbook time. And so today, if I go out sketching, I take a pencil roll full of different colour pencils, Neocolors, and then watercolours and brush pens of different sorts, maybe Tombows or Ecoline pens are a favourite as well. I have done actually a video where I talk in depth about my materials, so I'll try and pop that in here as well if you're more interested in that. But I think the way that I've learnt to draw in my sketchbook has just been basically to draw in my sketchbook. I know that sounds pretty simple, but when you're actually drawing in your sketchbook from the landscape, you're letting yourself respond to what you see, and you're kind of giving yourself space to experiment and to explore the mediums that you're using and the materials you're using. You find different ways of working. I love using Inktense pencils for that reason. They give such a juicy saturation in their colours, which is a lot more interesting than just using watercolour alone. And especially as the sketchbook time sometimes isn't that long and you just want to capture something, then using the pencils really help me get the desired effect that I want. And it's just basically time and practice and experimenting on the page. A lot of times I'm not completely happy with what I produce, but I just keep going, and then there'll be pictures, compositions on the page which I absolutely love. The only way to get better or improve or discover what works for you is to actually do the work. And I love drawing the Cornish landscape. The colours that I see around me really inspire me. I love the mustard colours against the grey-blue of the sea. You can then suddenly get a whole change in the weather, and it suddenly brings out maybe more turquoise tones in the sea, and you get the really bright, crisp colours. So it is definitely the landscape that inspires me to just keep drawing it. and the landscape does influence what colours I choose and what colours I want to go out with. So my favourite Neocolor colours at the moment are orangish yellow, which is really like an apricot colour. This colour, I love this colour so much that I actually bought it twice. Normally when I go into a shop and I'm looking for them, I normally take my colours with me, but I completely forgot this time and knew I had to pick up some more colours. And I just spotted the colour and I was like, oh, I really like that colour. And the funny thing is that I had it already, so that shows that I definitely like this colour. And then the other colour that I love is a light olive green, and it's just such a good colour. It's very versatile. I love mixing it with some of the darker greens, and it's just a lovely warm green, and I see it a lot in the landscape around me. When we were in Hong Kong, there was a lovely book that I discovered called Sights and Secrets, Sketches and Paintings of Hong Kong by Loretta E. Roberts. It was actually the first time that I was introduced to keeping a sketchbook, was through that book. Although at the time I wasn't at all interested in keeping a sketchbook myself, I loved the idea of it. And it's funny because that must have kind of gone into my subconscious somewhere, because although I had the book and I loved looking through the pages and seeing where she had explored and where she had visited, I didn't click that's what I could do in my area until, 10 years later, when I moved to Porthleven and I suddenly looked and I was just wanted to draw what I saw. So it's interesting how sometimes things come into our lives and we don't necessarily, we know that we really like them, but they're just kind of working away in the background. I do want to do a video actually with all of the books that I love looking at, so I think I will do that for a future video, and I'll share more of the books that I love to look at. I think if you're coming back to art, or if you're starting art later in life, and you're wondering how do you get started, then my simple tips would be just to start, just to go out. I guess it depends on what is your interest, what is it that you want to do, but I would just start where you are. Buy a sketchbook, get some materials. I would suggest just keeping it very simple to perhaps a brush pen or a black pen and some watercolours, and just start drawing what you see in front of you. I think that's probably the simplest thing you can start doing, rather than trying to bog yourself down in different techniques straight away. Sometimes that can get a bit overwhelming because you realise, there's too much of a jump here. So perhaps actually just start by just drawing what you see in front of you. And as you go, you will start to notice things improve. In 2020, I did a daily drawing outside on location on a postcard. And yeah, at the start I was kind of quite tentative, but as I went on, it became more and more part of my day. And sometimes that's what you have to do, is you have to bring something into your routine that isn't onerous, but becomes something that is normal for you to do. So put a time limit on it, maybe just 10 minutes, 15 minutes, so that it's not overwhelming, and just start creating, start sketching, start drawing. And you don't have to go outside, maybe do that once in a while, but You could just start drawing all the shoes that you own, or you could draw all the objects in your cupboard. You know, you could draw the teacup that you drink from, or mug that you drink from. I often find anything that I draw, though, becomes interesting, and you'll find as you keep persisting in it and you keep doing it, you begin to see things slightly different, and you do start to notice things, and your practice and your drawings will improve. And I would also say the reason for using a sketchbook as well is that you can see a chronological progression of your work as well. If you're just working on pieces of paper, then there's no real sense of, well, you probably wouldn't want to keep some of them, but also you won't see progress. And that's often what you just need to encourage you at times, is to see progress. So yeah, just start drawing. I have a Domestica course at the moment that is on drawing food, and in particular a recipe. So that's another thing that I love to draw, is food and recipes. And that course is currently available at Domestica. However, that course does combine analogue and digital. And I am aware that not everyone has access to digital software, and it can be expensive. So I am aware of that, although the course does cover quite a bit of just analogue exercises that you can do where you don't need access to a computer. So there is about, I would say about half the course is still, you can still get something from the course even if you don't actually use the software. Back in January, I was starting to work on another Domestica course, and it was on sketching with mixed media. And this was definitely a subject which I was very excited about. And I had actually written the course, and we were getting ready to start to film the course. But unfortunately, my producer was made redundant, which meant there is now a delay on getting the course done. So at the moment, I do not know when they will reschedule that. Unfortunately, I haven't heard anything for a while. Hopefully I will hear something, but it may not happen now until next year. So in the meantime, I have been thinking about running or creating an online course for sketching, and I've definitely been inspired to put something together. I'm still not sure as to how I'm going to sell the course, whether I sell it through my site and then give links to those people who have signed up, or whether I do pre-orders and then release it all on the same day so everyone gets the link. I've still got to work all of that out, as well as write the course, but I'm definitely wanting to do this, and I've invested in a little bit more equipment, so I'm hoping I'll be able to go out as well and film on location, basically take you with me. So it would be a course that would be perfect for people starting to keep a sketchbook. It'll also show ways in which I work with different mediums, and I'm hoping that it'll just really give encouragement to those who want to really get into sketching. So that's something that I am excited about. Hopefully on the channel you've now seen the joy of sketching, and I'm hoping to actually use that title as my course. So that will be kind of my banner, the joy of sketching, and I do want to create a couple more videos on that theme just for my YouTube channel as well. So yeah, I'll keep you posted on how it is going. If you are interested though in taking a course, a potential course with me, do let me know. And if you have any suggestions for what you would definitely like to see in the course, then feel free to email me. I'll be very happy to take any of your suggestions on board. So I'm really happy that my Creative Conversation series is continuing, and you'll see that my most recent one was with illustrator Crixus, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to her story. Do check that interview out if you haven't yet. There's so much good information that she gives, and she is an illustrator for children's books. So if you are interested in creating illustrations for children's books, then make sure that you go and listen to that conversation. And my next conversation, I'm actually going to be filming it very soon, and I'm going to be chatting with a blacksmith. And she works from an old quarry at a forge. So I'm really, really interested to talk to her about her practice and what it's like to be a blacksmith. It's definitely an area which I have not explored at all, but I thought it would be fascinating to bring you guys along with me, and I'll make sure I ask a lot of different questions about what she does. She creates these wonderful pieces of artwork from found metal, which is normally rusted, and it's also influenced by Cornwall and the landscape. I think you're going to find it really interesting to listen to her story just as much as I am. I think that's where I'm going to leave it today. I hope you've enjoyed listening as well as watching what I've been creating, and I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who asked questions. So thank you to Wendy, Karen, Megan, Jenny, Bethany, Madeline, Debs, Matt, Alexandra, MH Zans, MK Creative B, and Creating Cute Art. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon.